No indictment. Streets erupt in violence after a New York grand jury's decision not to indict a police officer. Picturing Mary, we tour an art exhibit filled with images of the Blessed Mother. Interfaith interaction. We talk to religious leaders at a Catholic-Muslim summit at the Vatican. And Advent opportunities. We discuss this season of anticipation that begins the new liturgical year. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, December 4th, 2014. Good evening from Washington. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick with your news now. The Obama administration is questioning a New York grand jury's decision not to charge a white police officer in the choking death of a black man. Chief White House correspondent Suzanne LaFranchi has the story tonight. Suzanne?
First there was Ferguson, now Staten Island. Emotions are raw across the country. There have been protests in New York, Atlanta, and California. The Obama administration says the justice system needs to change.
At the Summit on College Opportunity, the president publicly validated protesters' outrage, insisting the justice system must change.
Too many Americans feel deep unfairness when it comes to the gap between our professed ideals and how laws are applied on a day-to-day basis.
The graphic cell phone video of Eric Gardner shows a white police officer holding the unarmed black man in an apparent chokehold, even though he repeatedly gasped that he could not breathe. Despite the video, a medical examiner's ruling that the chokehold contributed to the death, a Staten Island grand jury decided Wednesday not to bring charges against the officer.
Police have a terribly hard job in the best of circumstances.
Professor Clifford Fishman, a former New York City prosecutor, says the grand jury was privy to details the public doesn't know.
From what the video appears to show, it's a clear case of excessive use of force. What we don't know, at least what I don't know, is what happened before the video. I mean, we have maybe 10, 15 seconds are shown. Did he physically resist arrest? Did he physically assault one of the police officers beforehand?
The Justice Department is investigating the Gardner case, and part of an ongoing review of several police departments. Attorney General Eric Holder announced today that Cleveland police officers use excessive and unnecessary force far too often.
Holder will be visiting 5 more U.S. cities, meeting with civil rights leaders on the issue. The New York City Police Commissioner announced his officers will be undergoing new training. From the White House, Suzanne LaFranchi, EWTN News Nightly.
And now some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. House Republicans have passed a bill declaring President Obama's executive actions on immigration null and void. The legislation would undo the president's measure to extend work permits and relief from deportation to millions of illegal immigrants. That vote is only symbolic, though, because it stands no chance in the Senate and faces a certain White House veto. Democrats discredit the bill, saying it would break up families. More victims of sexual assault in the military are coming forward, according to a new Pentagon report that was released today. The number of victims who reported assaults increased 8% this year. Nearly 5% of active duty women said they were victims of unwanted sexual contact in 2014. That is down from 6.1% in 2012. For active duty men, the rate of unwanted sexual contact stayed about the same, around 1%. However, 62% of the women who reported sexual assault say they faced some form of retaliation.
Like sexual assault itself, reprisal directly contradicts one of the highest values of our military, that we protect our brothers and our sisters in uniform.
The Pentagon chief also says he's concerned that sexual harassment through social media is increasing in the military ranks. The president will announce Hagel's replacement to lead the Pentagon on Friday. Ashton Carter, formerly number 2 at the Defense Department, is expected to be nominated. Hagel resigned late last month, agreeing to stay on until his replacement is confirmed. An al-Qaeda-linked group has put out a new video message threatening to kill yet another American hostage. The video features Luke Summers, a 33-year-old journalist who was captured in Yemen last year. He asked for help in the message, saying his life is in danger. A terrorist in the video says the U.S. has 3 days to meet the group's demands. U.S. and Yemeni commandos launched a rescue attempt last month. They did free several hostages, but Summers was not among those freed. Police and social services begin a massive clearing out of one of the largest homeless encampments in the U.S. It's known as the Jungle. People living in this Silicon Valley camp were told to be out by today or face arrest for trespassing. 60 people were still living at the camp earlier this week, but that's down from the original 200. Violence and unsanitary conditions have plagued the Jungle for years. Local officials say they'll work to find shelters for some who are already connected with social services. A federal judge rules against an Indiana law requiring Planned Parenthood to meet the same standards as surgical abortion clinics. That would mean that clinics prescribing abortifacients would have to add a recovery room, scrub facilities, and take other steps. Attorneys for the state argue the law requires clinics to be minimally prepared in case a woman prescribed with the abortion pill suffers complications. Well, the Vatican will soon release findings from its review of women religious orders here in the United States. The study looked at the quality of life for U.S. sisters whose numbers have fallen sharply in recent decades. The comprehensive study was conducted between 2008 and 2011. Results will be released on December 16th. Vatican spokesman Father Thomas Rosica says it will be an encouraging moment for religious sisters. A summit on Christian-Muslim relations hosted by the Vatican wraps up in Rome today. It is the third in a series of encounters between Christian and Muslim leaders. The Vatican says the aim is to promote mutual understanding, respect, and collaboration between Catholics and the followers of other religious traditions. Joining us from Rome tonight, Cardinal Jean-Louis Thérain, President of the Pontifical Council for Interreligious Dialogue, which organized the Catholic-Muslim Summit that's been going on in Rome. Your Eminence, this has been going on for some time. Where do you see us moving forward from this year's summit?
Well, I should say that this meeting has been very interesting because we passed from dialogue to concrete actions. For many years we looked at each other. Now we are walking on the same road, hand by hand, to build something concrete.
What concrete actions will be launched out of this year's summit?
Education, and education is, I should say, is the main point, because we have young people who are very well informed, but they are unable to think. And as regards religion, there is a very dramatic religious illiteracy. So we have to stress the necessity of transmitting religious values. Otherwise, our young people are heir without heritage and builder without models.
Do you feel that there is agreement among the religious leaders that we're meeting in Rome this week that this can and will move forward, that education will make a difference in interreligious dialogue and in the world in general?
Oh yes, no doubt about that. We noticed a great convergence of evaluation about this problem.
And finally, could you comment a little bit about the leadership of Pope Francis? This has been really a mission for him throughout his life, bringing people of various faiths together. This seems to be a giant step in that direction.
I tell you, I think people used to come and see John Paul II. They came to listen to Benedict, and they come now to touch Pope Francis, because he is a very loving person, very Latino-American, and I think people are stressed by the simplicity, and also I should say that he exercised what I call the power of the heart.
The power of the heart. Your Eminence, Jean-Louis Thérain, the Pontifical Council for Interreligious Dialogue President, joining us from Rome. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you to you.
And later, we return to Rome to talk more about the summit with an Anglican bishop and a prominent Jewish rabbi. Coming up, her image has been enshrined in art for centuries. We take you behind the scenes of Picturing Mary. And drones used to watch for violence could cause more conflict in Israel. We're looking at today's rehearsals before tonight's ceremony, lighting the national Christmas tree right here in Washington. Tom Hanks and his wife Rita Wilson host the lighting. Now in its 92nd year, the national Christmas tree is a 29-foot living Colorado blue spruce in President's Park outside the White House. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday evening, December the 4th. I'm Brian Patrick. A new art exhibit featuring the lead female role in the Christmas story opens here in Washington this first week of Advent. Wyatt Goolsbee takes us to the National Museum of Women in the Arts, where visitors will meet Mary.
In the Catholic faith, she has dozens of titles: Virgin, Madonna, Our Lady. But here in Washington, a new exhibit called Picturing Mary also highlights several others: woman, mother, idea. More than 60 Renaissance and Baroque paintings, sculptures, and textiles will be on display, some for the first time in the United States.
Mary really was, for a very long time, within the period that the exhibit covers, almost the primary way of visualizing womanhood and motherhood.
Monsignor Timothy Verdon, one of the Catholic Church's top art historians, is based in Florence, Italy. He says bringing the exhibit to the U.S. has been 4 years in the making. He hopes the works will educate Americans about Mary.
It's like going to a family gathering where the older people give you all the background information about people you've heard about, who you know are important, but you never perhaps met, or if you met them, it was only superficially. And here you have these people who know much better that person telling you all the stuff you needed to hear.
Catherine Watt, the chief curator at the National Museum of Women in the Arts, says the exhibit fits in with the museum's mission.
One of the things that this exhibition points out is that women artists were working on very important subjects very early on, beginning as early as the early Renaissance. We know their names and we can see their work here in an exhibition like this.
With so many titles and so many ways to portray the Virgin Mother, perhaps the invitation just outside the building says it the simplest: meet Mary. In Washington, Wyatt Goolsbee, EWTN News Nightly.
Thanks, Wyatt. That exhibit opens tomorrow. It runs through April. You can also check out highlights on the National Museum of Women in the Arts website, nmwa.org. Well, this year's flu vaccination may be less effective because the current flu virus has mutated. This, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Flu virus samples taken over the past couple of months show less than half match the strain in this year's vaccine. That means the virus you're vaccinated against doesn't quite match the strain that's present this season. The CDC still recommends getting vaccinated because it can decrease the severity of the illness if you do get the flu. Protests and violence in Jerusalem are being monitored by police on the ground and by airborne cameras. Catherine Elliott reports.
Israeli police are using a new surveillance system above Jerusalem to monitor clashes. These balloons carrying cameras can fly in the air for up to 72 hours. Their developers say the aerial surveillance balloons offer police a wide range of angles.
We give them the third dimension. Those people who are throwing stones, we can detect them even if they hide behind buildings or in gardens. We have minimal dead spots, so it's easy for us to find them.
In recent weeks, clashes between Palestinians throwing stones and Israeli forces have intensified. Police say the balloons offer a way to find exactly where those disturbances are happening.
And our units can respond a lot quicker, a lot faster, and much more effectively.
Yet residents in East Jerusalem say the balloons are intrusive.
The balloons penetrate into people's lives. They want to discover everything that's going on. Who is going? Who is coming? Who is that person?
And they say the surveillance goes beyond policing, monitoring the daily lives of Palestinians.
This is a clear proof that Israel is restricting the residents' freedom and observing the tiniest details.
Israeli police say they have 3 surveillance balloons deployed over Jerusalem. Recent violence is connected to tensions over the city's holiest sites for both Jews and Muslims. Catherine Elliott, EWTN News Nightly.
Up next, it's a season often lost in the pre-holiday rush. We'll look at creative ways to spread the Advent message. On Thursday evening, thanks for joining us for EWTN News Nightly. I'm Brian Patrick. NASA needs a second chance to launch its experimental Orion spacecraft. Heavy winds and a sticky fuel valve stopped today's planned launch at Cape Canaveral in Florida. Orion is NASA's next-generation spaceship that could eventually allow astronauts to explore other planets. If early tests go well, astronauts will be added to the mix early next decade, and a mission to Mars perhaps a decade after that. The space agency will try again tomorrow morning to launch the unmanned spacecraft. There's a good chance, though, the weather will keep Orion grounded once again. Vladimir Putin defended Russia's aggressive foreign policy today, saying national pride is necessary for Russia's survival. The Russian president gave his annual State of the Nation address, boasting that no enemy would ever defeat Russia militarily. He also said Russia should be a global economic power. This in spite of sanctions over its actions in Ukraine that are slowing Russia's economy. Russia annexed Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula in March. Putin's government is accused of supplying pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine with ammunition and manpower. More than 4,300 people have died in the conflict there. More now on the Vatican Summit, promoting understanding between Christians and Muslims, a sensitive topic in many parts of the world today. We're joined from Rome by Anglican Bishop John Bryson Chain. And Bishop Chain, in the news conference around this summit, you talked about this being a miracle for these times. Can you explain that?
Yes, and I'll be as brief as I can. Quite frankly, when I say it's a miracle for its time, it is that this was a gathering of Sunni and Shia clerics and scholars who were able to come together along with Catholics and Anglicans, Episcopals, and really have the kind of intense conversation using, I think, a different language than we have ever used before.
Does that give you great hope that something really solid will come out of this as the days go by?
Yeah, I really do. It gives me a great sense of hopefulness during a very, very challenging time. I think one of the exciting pieces to this is that His Holiness the Pope has been very clear about the importance of interreligious conversation and dialogue based on the challenges that are being faced by people not only in the Middle East but globally. That kind of encouragement, I think, has been an encouragement that's been embraced by the delegations that were here representing the Episcopal Anglican Church, Sunnis and Shias, to the person, and that is very, very exciting.
Do you believe that the churches, in combining perhaps their charitable support for those who are oppressed by the suffering that's going on in the Middle East especially, can truly make a difference? And do you think that that will happen?
I think, first of all, what would be extremely important was contained in a document, in the document that was presented today at the Open Conference here in Rome. And that is that the most important thing is, first of all, for Christians and Muslims in particular here, to be present for those who are suffering and who are oppressed, who have been racked by violence, many of them refugees, and to be present with them, and at the same time challenging those institutions, both religious, secular, and governmental agencies, to the need to become really engaged financially and morally and ethically in meeting this great challenge that's impacting millions of people now.
And finally, a comment perhaps about the leadership of Pope Francis in something that could have such a benefit to the world.
Well, quite frankly, I'll speak for myself. I think Pope Francis has really taken the initiative to say, here's where the Catholic Church is, but this is something that's really embraced by both Christians and Muslims and Jews. And you know what? That really is an exciting thing to hear. It's not that it wasn't possible in the past. It is that times have changed. We live in a very violent and vitriolic world. And for the Holy Father to make the statements that he's made and the visitations that he's experienced, and then for us to come and have this opportunity in Rome, not only to have an audience with him, but to embrace his words and to have a common agreement by Sunni and Shia scholars and clerics and Anglicans, is truly, truly amazing. That really is a miracle.
Indeed. The Right Reverend John Bryson Chain, a bishop in the Episcopal Church, joining us from Rome. Your Excellency, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And so this is a discussion about Muslims and Christians, but a rabbi and close friend of Pope Francis says a Jewish presence is vital to this ongoing dialogue.
We are Jews, Muslims, and Christians. We are the three Abrahamic religions related intimately one to the other.
Rabbi Skorka and Pope Francis co-authored a book together in their native Argentina, and last May, he accompanied Francis on his historic Holy Land pilgrimage. Hong Kong Cardinal Joseph Zen joined the three protest leaders who surrendered to police yesterday. Wearing his clerical collar, Cardinal Zen spoke of the need to take responsibility for ending the civil disobedience. Police didn't charge Cardinal Zen or any of the protest leaders. Protests in Hong Kong continue despite pleas for peace from the founders of the Occupy Central movement. Well, today Pope Francis took to his Twitter account, tweeting an Advent message. He writes, "Advent increases our hope, a hope which does not disappoint. The Lord never lets us down." Well, in preparation for Christmas, the Church is finding new ways to reach out this Advent season. Here in the Archdiocese of Washington, there's the launch of the Find the Perfect Gift initiative. The campaign offers daily reflections, a family Advent calendar, videos, and audio talks, all available online. Father Bill Byrne is Secretary for Pastoral Ministry and Social Concerns for the Archdiocese of Washington, and also pastor of St. Peter's on Capitol Hill. So I went to the website, and I was struck by today's reflection. Do you ever feel like your life is one big to-do list? Yes?
Yes, the answer is yes.
How do we counter this busyness of this season?
Well, it's one of those things. We want immediate gratification, and that's part of why we have to-do lists, because we want to get our stuff done. We don't like that feeling of burdens. Check them off, exactly. But that immediacy is not God's plan. As Cardinal Null once said, God likes crock pots, we like microwaves. And that's the way.
Slow time.
And what we have to realize is that the time of waiting is itself an important time. The in-between is part of who we are.
All we have to do is go back to the time when we were a kid. That time of waiting was the most exciting time of Christmas.
Right, but it's also a time of great graces if we allow it to happen, and if we invite other people into the whole process of recognizing that the in-between is itself a place where we need to be.
Father, let's talk about inviting others into this, because Advent is such a wonderful season, and yet so many Catholics who don't attend Mass on a regular basis will go to Mass on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. But how many actually participate in Advent, and how can we encourage them to do so?
Well, this was Cardinal Wuerl's vision of making sure that we tried to move people along a continuum. So the Cardinal said there's three types of people in the world: those who are not evangelized, don't know Jesus; those who are not yet evangelizing; and those who are evangelizers. And our efforts are that first two group, to take the people who don't know Jesus and introduce them. We have just a simple yard sign that we place right in people's front yard. We have 8,000 of them across the Archdiocese, just to look at it and say, wait a second, there is a perfect gift, a regalo perfecto. But the act of actually doing that brings people into meeting Jesus and bringing him out to other people, to invite them by putting a yard sign or a window sign is just that process of becoming an evangelizer. And we have a website filled with amazing content that if people do elect to get there, then we have videos, Advent calendars, daily tweeted reflections, and things that you can get sent to your phones. Incredible.
It is very cool. I know I'm going to use it every day. I appreciate today's reflection. And Father Bill Byrne, thank you for coming in and sharing this Find the Perfect Gift initiative with us.
Thank you, Brian.
Have a good Advent, Father. Well, we thank you for joining us. Until tomorrow, we encourage you to like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter. Watch again anytime you like on EWTN's YouTube page. For all of us at EWTN News Nightly, I'm Brian Patrick. In this first week of Advent, we have some pictures tonight of the Vatican's Christmas tree going up. Good night, and God bless you.